Welcome to an updated settings guide for Battlefield 6 Season 4. This one's going to improve your aim, allow you to snap to targets faster, hear more player footsteps, improve the visibility, and much more. This is mainly a controller guide. There will be PC-specific settings later on in the video, but we will be covering most things along the way. So sit back, relax, drop the like, and follow along. Head over to Settings, Controller, Edit Settings, and then Control Settings at the top here. Infantry aim is your hipfire sensitivity. 30 to 50 is fine for most players. Personally, I use 100. Invert vertical look for me is on. Turn off if you don't play inverted. Field of view is the amount of observable world you see in front of you. Narrow is easier to spot enemies and track them. Wider is best to increase your peripheral vision, see more targets around you, and not have to look around as much. But do be aware, targets at longer ranges become much more difficult to track. I would personally recommend 106. Vertical aim ratio leave alone unless you know what you're doing. At 100, the crosshair will move the same distance vertically as horizontally. That may feel weird for some, so leave it default and only change if you know what you're doing. Same for the zoom option when aiming down sight. This is only available if you turn off the next option. This is uniform soldier aiming. Basically, this makes all sights feel the same in terms of sensitivity. So if you turn to the right 90 degrees with a pistol, and then do the same with a sniper, with a big scope, both will feel the same in terms of sensitivity. Highly recommend you turn this on. Coefficient is hotly debated around the community. Leave on default unless you're an experienced player and want to experiment. As for the aim assist options here, I would recommend leaving them at default 100. Standard aim assist above, and we have slow down below, which basically slows your aim when you are on target. I can play without aim assist, but in this title I would not recommend, particularly in crossplay on lobbies. If you find the aim a little too sticky when sniping, do be sure to drop this down to 80 to 90%. Curve options down here, recommend standard personally. If you enjoyed a previous Battlefield game, try their options here too. Linear for a one-to-one feel, and dynamic for snappy aiming. Personally, would not recommend any acceleration. If you are from Call of Duty and want something similar, try around 20%, otherwise turn it off. As for the movement options, many of these are going to be down to personal preference, so I won't go too much into these. We will adjust the zoom options later. Steady scope hold for me, toggle if you like that one. Now, the infantry zoom aim sensitivity, this is your aim down sight sensitivity. And of course, remember, this is a percentage of your hipfire sensitivity set earlier. Leave at 100 for one-to-one aiming. Set it to 50 for half speed and 200 for double of your hipfire speed. If you turned on uniform soldier aiming as I recommended earlier, leave these bottom options alone. You can adjust these accordingly if you are not using uniform soldier aiming and make different sights feel how you want them. Do remember, again, these are percentages of your hipfire sensitivity. Again, we have many personal preferences with these options down here. Use your own or copy mine. I do recommend setting mount breakout to instant, so you exit a mount as quickly as possible. Motion sensor options down here, if you do use them, disable if not. Flick mode enables a quick 180. Personally, don't find many situations this works in. Do turn it all the way up though, and we'll set a custom keybind if you want to use that later on. Now do be sure to back out, and here I would highly recommend you change infantry buttons to alternate. So the right analog becomes crouch instead of melee, and circle or B becomes melee. This will enable you to crouch, crouch bounce, and slide much more easily. If you are a fan of Legacy or Legacy Southpaw here, you have some options you can change, otherwise leave them alone. Now click control mapping here, and if you like, we can flip the triggers here for faster and more responsive combat. Ignore this if you don't. Now what you want to do here is change comma rows to L2 or left back trigger, grenade to R2 or right back trigger, fire to R1, and zoom to L1. This is a much snappier setup, I find. Highly recommend. Melee will be on circle or B here, and a crouch on the right analog. Using alternate will mess up bipod and mount, so do be sure to change this to the left analog and toggle scope hold to left analog too, or right stick hold if you prefer. Now, as for the vehicle settings here, I'm not going to go through all of them, as most of them can be the same as infantry unless you want a different sensitivity on vehicles. Again, with all these options here, go with what you prefer. I would recommend having a play with the decouple tank turret aiming from turning and vehicle aim relative controls. These can be quite confusing. I've got some gameplay on screen right now so you can see the difference here. Have a play in a private server and see what makes most sense to you. Same idea for the transport vehicle sections. Again, most of this is personal preference, use the same as infantry or what works for you. As for the aircraft controls, again, these are pretty self-explanatory. I do like my sensitivity to be fairly standard and controllable. I will recommend though changing the third-person aircraft camera roll to what makes most sense to you. It's a little easier to follow targets around when the camera isn't following, but may feel weird to some players. I have my own custom setup here. Throttle up and down with L2, R2, yaw on the right analog, pitch on up and down right analog, roll on left analog. This makes total sense in my head. Worth a try if you like. It's a pretty straightforward, simple system, and if you're not enjoying it, do be sure to click the reset category in the bottom there if it doesn't work for you. Again, flight school is your friend. Head over to Portal, type this code in, and have some fun learning. Make sure to back out here and click controller tuning. Unless you like it, turn off vibration. It can affect aim and there is no need for it. Options below to tweak it if you do. Now here's how we can improve your reaction times. So basically, dead zones are the center of the analog stick where movement is detected. The lower the dead zone, the more sensitive the stick becomes. Too low and you get stick drift. Easy to miss targets and lose control. Anywhere between 3 to 15 is going to be fine for most players. Personally use 4, low if you need. Would not recommend going too higher, it's not going to feel good. And too low, you might see too much stick drift. Do not change the actual and the threshold here unless you really know what you're doing. Default will be fine for most players. You can lower these for a snappier feeling, but aim may not feel as one-to-one. Do the same for both sticks unless you want a different kind of feeling here. Make sure you drop these options down here to the lowest values so your back triggers are instant and snappy, unless you don't want them to feel like that. There's a new tool down here at the bottom here that allows you to see in-game how effective or not your dead zones actually perform. Do be sure to give this a little go if you need. I'm not going to go too much into detail with the mouse and keyboard settings here, as there will be a short PC section later, and I don't use a mouse on console. Most are pretty self-explanatory, and if you use a mouse, I'm sure you know what you're doing here. There is some sensitivity options here with conversion values over here on the right side. You may want to check out if you want to convert other games to similar values here. I will say though, do be sure to head to the bottom here and make sure raw mouse input is on for that raw snappy aim. Now, you want to hear some footsteps, right? So let's have a look at the audio options. Leave master at 100, sound effects at 100 as well. Music off if you do not want to hear anything. I like a bit of music, so 50 to 70 works for me. Menu music is up to you. Commander VO drop down a bit to 50 to 80. Same for soldier and campaign. UI SFX I leave at 100. Leave hit indicator on unless you don't want the feedback. Personally recommend this stays on. And controller volume down to 0 unless you're one of those weirdos. Depending on your setup here, you may want to change these various system sound options here. Personally, I find stereo and 3D headphones the most consistent. Headphone width maxed out to 100 works for me, and audio mix on night mode. If you're going for an all-out war experience, set it to one of the war tapes options here and have a blast. It is epic, but well, it's epic and loud. Enjoy. Recommend turning off voice chat unless you really want that. Some accessibility options down here as well if you need them. Personally, disable radio music, especially if you are a streamer. If you are on PS5 and have a compatible headset, you can enable this option here and see if you find hearing footsteps any better. Tried it, had some fun, not for me. Now let's adjust the HUD and make it easier to see players and snap on targets. Leave the HUD on unless you're an absolute weirdo. Turn off these motion HUD options here if you don't like those. Mostly personal preference with all of these. I will say make sure Sovis filter is on. This definitely improves soldier visibility. When it comes to advanced, there is a lot to adjust here, so I'm not going to go into everything. But I will highly recommend you turn off kill feed icons, which will display weapon names in the kill feed, which can be very helpful, particularly when you're pushing a tricky area and want to know what kind of weapons are ahead of you. Again, there is so many options here. A lot of these are definitely personal preference. I will say though, you want to change the zoomed in opacity on all of these. Dropping this down to somewhere between 50 to 80 should be fine. So basically when you're aiming down sight, the icon is not going to get in the way of any enemy players. However, for the enemy icon's opacity, when zoomed, do be sure to set this to 100, but if you are aiming down sight at some enemies, if anyone creeps in on the side, you're not going to miss them. Make sure to back out for the minimap options here, pretty self-explanatory once again. Recommend copying what I use. Set view distance on foot to 300 or whatever value above that, and you'll get a much better minimap view on the ground. Compass options here too if you need them. These values work well for me. Now in this section here, we are going to adjust the crosshair options to make you a better, faster, and more snappy player. On the right side here, you can see how your changes look in various lighting conditions. Recommend 100 for the opacity of the crosshair, 60 for the crosshair intensity. I do love a pinky purple crosshair, very easy to track with and not too distracting. Highly recommend something similar, maybe a blue, green, or even the default white. You can also have a custom reticle color if you like. Personally, even after changing it, I always go back to the default white. It just works. Do be sure to turn off the crosshair projection so you get a static crosshair. This will definitely help with your aiming and tracking. You can also turn off the infantry hit indicators projection. Recommend you do this. Less motion going on here on the HUD is always good. Now this section is the most important. This setup right here I've been using for years in many Battlefield titles. Setting up something similar will enable you to snap onto targets much faster. So at the top here we have blue for a standard hit, red for headshot, so you may only need another bullet or two, green indicates a kill, so snap to another target as soon as you see green, and yellow for armor, orange for armor, and orange for hard armor hit. This can potentially speed up your gameplay. Highly recommend it. More personal preference with these options here, and chat options if you want to change them. On the gameplay tab here, you'll have many settings here we've already adjusted in other sections. Leave alone unless necessary. I will say turn off the HUD prompts if you don't need them. Roll camera off unless you want to visually see a forward roll upon landing. Peek off for me, leave default for most. Reload, tap and hold for interact for me personally. And the rest of these options we have adjusted elsewhere. As for console specific settings, this is PS5, Xbox is somewhat similar. Make sure you're playing wide if possible for less potential lag and consistency. Performance mode for the higher frame rates. Quality for the graphic lovers out there. Set your resolution to the highest available. BSSR for a more sharper image. Not noticed any input lag here, so I keep this on. Variable refresh rate on your monitor if it supports it. If you're playing at a higher hertz, this will feel much better to aim at and much more snappy. 120 Hz on again if your monitor supports it. ALLM if you're on TV, monitors shouldn't need it. HDR settings are off for me personally as it's a headache for streaming. Totally fine to be on otherwise. Recommend setting controller to USB as well for that consistent connection. As for the graphic settings, make sure to set performance if you are on a PS5 Pro. World brightness between 50 and 60. UI and sharpness is up to you. We did discuss FOV earlier. Vehicle FOV is exactly the same. Set for higher here to see more of the world around you. Weapon FOV on wide so it takes less space on the screen. Turn off the weapon blur here unless you really like those options. Camera shake all the way down for easier targeting while explosions are going off nearby. Reduce sprint camera bobbing on is a no-brainer, and turn off these below unless you really like these effects. As for PC specific settings, I'm using mostly these as standard here. We could go through each of these for hours, but each of these is pretty self-explanatory. The higher you go, the better your game looks, lower for more frames in general, and better visibility. Fixed resolution scale up a little bit for a sharper, nicer looking game if you like, but will use more resources. Enabled and boost for NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency for snappier control. I do use DLSS and have not noticed any input lag. It works very well. I would highly recommend it. And these are the rest of my recommendations. We talked much of these options here earlier. Within the NVIDIA control panel on PC, I assume AMD has something similar. I'd recommend setting the digital vibrance to 70% for much better looking visuals. Set your monitor to the highest refresh rate available, and here are my NVIDIA specific settings if you wish to copy them. Most are pretty standard. There is some accessibility options here if you need them. Color profiles here if you want a complete custom setup with the HUD colors. Do have a play with the flash grenade dark mode. Some people may like this on. As for the systems options here at the top, you can uninstall sections of the game you don't play, along with a setting to turn off crossplay here. I personally play it on, highly recommend it. Turning it off sounds great for console, but does drastically reduce the amount of servers available. Turn off player created content if you don't want to see any player emblems and all that jazz. And there is various player privacy options here if you need them. Turn these off down here if you don't want to share data with EA or other websites. And if you are having network issues you don't believe are your own, turn on the network graphic, record gameplay, and send it in to EA for help. And that's all, guys. I do hope this one has helped. Do be sure to drop a like if you've enjoyed this. Again, many options are personal preference, and sometimes you've got to jump in and test them out, particularly when it comes to the vehicle gameplay. Again, do be sure to check out Flight School, have a go at some of those, and let me know how it goes. If I've not explained anything, do be sure to drop a comment down below. Anyway, guys, do be sure to drop a like on your way out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.